The darkness of the night was only illuminated by the faint glow of the city lights in the distance. The team had been analyzing the witness's statement for hours, trying to find any clue that could lead them to the enemy's hideout. Rostova and Ben were poring over the transcript, looking for anything that could be considered a cryptic message. "I think I found something." Rostova said it is a small phrase, but it could be important. She continued the phrase was repeated several times throughout the statement, and it seemed out of place among the rest of the conversation. "What is it?" Ben asked. "It is a phrase that sounds like a riddle." Rostova replied the phrase was "I will see you at the old clock tower at midnight." "That does sound like a riddle," Ben said, "but what does it mean?" he asked. Rostova shook her head. "I do not know, but I think it could be a clue," she said. The team decided to investigate further, and they started to analyze the phrase. They looked at the words, the syntax, and the context in which it was said. They were trying to find any connection to the enemy's hideout. Meanwhile, the backup team was on patrol, watching for any suspicious activity. They were a few blocks away from the safe house where the witness was being held. The team was on high alert, knowing that the enemy could strike at any moment. "We have movement." One of the team members said. "It is a group of people. They are trying to be stealthy, but they are not doing a very good job," he continued. The team immediately went into action, getting into position to observe the suspicious activity. They were trying to determine if it was the enemy and if they were planning to attack the safe house. The extraction team was put on high alert, ready to respond at a moment's notice. They were the ones who would escort the witness to safety if the enemy attacked. The team was confident in their abilities, but they knew that they had to be prepared for anything. The safe house was reinforced with additional security measures, including more guards and better surveillance equipment. The team was taking no chances, knowing that the enemy would stop at nothing to get to the witness. The team remained vigilant, anticipating a potential attack. They were waiting for the enemy's next move, ready to respond quickly and defend the witness. The tension was building, and the team was on edge. "We have to be ready for anything." One of the team members said. "The enemy is unpredictable, and we do not know what they are capable of," he continued. The team nodded in agreement, knowing that their training and experience would guide their every decision. They were a well-oiled machine, working together to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. As they waited for the enemy's next move, the team couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They knew that the enemy was out there, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But the team was ready, and they would do everything in their power to stop them. The darkness of the night seemed to grow thicker, as if it was waiting for something to happen. The team was waiting, the enemy was waiting, and the witness was waiting. It was a game of cat and mouse, and only time would tell who would come out on top. The team continued to watch and wait, their senses on high alert. They were ready to respond to any situation, and they would not back down. The enemy may have the upper hand, but the team had something that the enemy did not, the witness. And with the witness, the team had the upper hand. They had the key to unlocking the enemy's secrets, and they would use it to bring them down. The team was confident, and they knew that they would succeed. But as they waited, the team couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. They looked around, but they saw nothing. The darkness seemed to be moving, twisting and turning in every direction. "It is just your imagination," one of the team members said, but the feeling persisted, and the team knew that they had to be careful. They were in a high-stakes game, and they could not afford to make any mistakes. The night wore on, and the team continued to wait. They were waiting for the enemy's next move, and they were ready to respond. The tension was building, and the team was on edge. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. The darkness seemed to still, and the team was left with an eerie feeling of calm. It was as if the enemy was waiting, watching, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The team held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. They knew that the enemy would not give up easily, and they would stop at nothing to get to the witness. The team was ready, and they would do everything in their power to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. But as they waited, the team couldn't help but wonder what the enemy's next move would be. Would they attack the safe house, or would they try something more subtle? The team didn't know, but they were ready for anything. And as the night wore on, the team remained vigilant, waiting for the enemy's next move. They were ready to respond, and they would not back down. The team was a force to be reckoned with, and they would stop at nothing to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. The hours ticked by, and the team continued to wait. They were getting tired, but they knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The enemy could strike at any moment, and the team had to be ready. "I'm going to check the perimeter," one of the team members said. "I'll make sure everything is secure," he continued. The team member walked out of the room, leaving the others to continue watching the surveillance footage. They were looking for any sign of movement, any indication that the enemy was getting ready to attack. As they watched, they noticed something strange. A car was driving down the street, slowing down as it approached the safe house. The team immediately went on high alert, watching as the car stopped and a person got out. "It is just one person," one of the team members said, "but that doesn't mean it's not a threat," another team member replied. The team watched as the person looked around, trying to be casual but clearly checking out the safe house. The team knew they had to be careful. They didn't know what this person was capable of. "We need to get a closer look," one of the team members said. "I'll go check it out," another team member replied. The team member got up and walked out of the room, trying to get a closer look at the person. They walked quietly, not wanting to alert the person to their presence. As they got closer, they could see that the person was a woman. She was dressed in casual clothes, but she looked out of place in the neighborhood. The team member watched as she looked around, trying to take in as much information as possible. The woman seemed to be checking out the safe house, looking for any weaknesses. The team member knew they had to be careful. They didn't know what this woman was capable of. "I think we have a problem," the team member said. "The woman is checking out the safe house," she continued. The team immediately went on high alert, watching as the woman walked back to her car. They knew they had to be careful. They didn't know what she was planning. "We need to get the witness to a safe location," one of the team members said. "We can't let her get to them," another team member replied. The team quickly came up with a plan. They would move the witness to a new location and increase security. They knew they had to be careful. They didn't know what the enemy was planning. As they put their plan into action, the team couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They knew the enemy was out there, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But the team was ready. They would do everything in their power to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. The woman got into her car and drove away, but the team knew she would be back. They were on high alert, watching and waiting for the enemy's next move. The team was ready, and they would not back down. The night wore on, and the team continued to wait. They were getting tired, but they knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The enemy could strike at any moment, and the team had to be ready. As they waited, the team couldn't help but wonder what the enemy's next move would be. Would they attack the safe house, or would they try something more subtle? The team didn't know, but they were ready for anything. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. The darkness seemed to still, and the team was left with an eerie feeling of calm. It was as if the enemy was waiting, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The team held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. They knew the enemy would not give up easily, and they would stop at nothing to get to the witness. The team was ready, and they would do everything in their power to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. But as they waited, the team couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty. They didn't know what the enemy was planning, and they didn't know when they would strike. The team was on edge, waiting for the enemy's next move. And then, without warning, the lights in the room began to flicker. The team immediately went on high alert, watching as the lights dimmed and then brightened again. It was as if someone was trying to send them a message. "What's going on?" one of the team members said. "I don't know, but I don't like it," another team member replied. The team watched as the lights continued to flicker, trying to figure out what was happening. They knew they had to be careful. They didn't know what the enemy was planning. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The lights went back to normal, and the team was left with an eerie feeling of calm. It was as if the enemy was waiting, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The team held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. They knew the enemy would not give up easily, and they would stop at nothing to get to the witness. The team was ready, and they would do everything in their power to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. The hours ticked by slowly, the team waiting with bated breath for any sign of movement from the enemy. The darkness outside seemed to press in on them, making the air feel thick and heavy. Rostova and Ben were still poring over the transcript, trying to glean any more information from the cryptic message. "I think I found something else." Rostova said. "It is a small detail, but it could be important." She continued. "The witness mentioned a specific type of car, a black sedan with tinted windows," Rostova said. "That could be our enemy's vehicle." Ben replied. "We should put out an alert for any black sedans in the area," he said. The team quickly got to work, sending out a description of the vehicle to all the nearby patrol units. They were trying to cover all their bases, making sure they didn't miss any potential leads. Meanwhile, the backup team was still watching the suspicious group of people they had spotted earlier. The group seemed to be lingering in the area, trying not to draw attention to themselves. "I think they are waiting for something." One of the team members said maybe they are waiting for a signal to attack. He continued. The team immediately went on high alert, knowing that they had to be ready to respond at a moment's notice. They were trying to stay one step ahead of the enemy, anticipating their every move. The extraction team was also on standby, ready to escort the witness to safety at a moment's notice. They were the last line of defense, and they knew they had to be ready for anything. The safe house was secure, with multiple layers of security in place. The team had done everything they could to protect the witness, but they knew that no place was completely safe. As the night wore on, the team remained vigilant, waiting for the enemy's next move. They were a well-oiled machine, working together to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the waiting was over. The team received a report of a black sedan with tinted windows spotted in the area. The vehicle was heading straight for the safe house. "It is happening," one of the team members said. "The enemy is making their move," he continued. The team sprang into action, getting into position to defend the safe house. They were ready to respond, ready to protect the witness at all costs. The enemy was closing in, and the team was ready. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they would stop at nothing to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. The darkness outside seemed to grow even thicker, as if it was waiting to see what would happen next. The team was waiting, the enemy was waiting, and the witness was waiting. It was a moment of truth, and only time would tell who would come out on top. The team held their breath, waiting for the enemy's next move. They were ready to respond, ready to defend the witness and bring the enemy to justice. And as they waited, they knew that they were in for the fight of their lives. The hours ticked by slowly, and the team remained on high alert, waiting for any sign of the enemy. The silence was oppressive, and the team's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. They knew that the enemy could strike at any moment, and they had to be ready. "I do not like this," one of the team members said. "It is too quiet." He continued. The team nodded in agreement, knowing that the enemy was not one to give up easily. They were a formidable foe, and they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. "We need to stay focused," another team member said. "We cannot let our guard down, not even for a moment," he continued. The team nodded, knowing that they had to stay vigilant if they were going to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. As they waited, the team's thoughts turned to the witness, who was safely locked away in the safe house. They knew that the witness was the key to unlocking the enemy's secrets, and they had to do everything in their power to protect them. "I hope the witness is okay," Rostova said. "I hope they are not getting too anxious," she continued. Ben nodded in agreement, knowing that the witness was going through a lot. They were a key player in the game, and they had to be kept safe at all costs. The team's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden noise, a faint rustling sound that seemed to come from outside the safe house. The team immediately went on high alert, their senses heightened as they tried to locate the source of the noise. "What was that?" one of the team members asked. "It sounded like someone was outside," he continued. The team nodded, knowing that they had to investigate. They slowly made their way to the source of the noise, their guns drawn and ready. As they approached the source of the noise, they saw a figure huddled in the shadows. The figure was trying to remain hidden, but the team's trained eyes picked up on the movement. They slowly crept closer, trying not to startle the figure. "It is one of our own," one of the team members said. "It is one of the backup team members," he continued. The team breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that it was not the enemy. But they still had to be cautious, knowing that the enemy could be lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. "What are you doing out here?" Rostova asked. "You were supposed to be on patrol," she continued. The backup team member looked up, a sheepish look on his face. "I was just checking on something," he said. "I saw something suspicious, and I wanted to investigate," he continued. The team nodded, knowing that the backup team member was just doing his job. But they still had to be careful, knowing that the enemy was still out there, waiting to strike. "Let us get back to the safe house," Ben said. "We need to stay together, and we need to stay alert," he continued. The team nodded, knowing that Ben was right. They slowly made their way back to the safe house, their senses on high alert, waiting for the enemy's next move. As they approached the safe house, they noticed that something was off. The door was slightly ajar, and the team could sense that something was wrong. They slowly pushed open the door, their guns drawn and ready. "What do you see?" one of the team members asked. "Is everything okay?" he continued. Rostova slowly looked around, her eyes scanning the area. She saw the witness, who was safely locked away in a room, but she also saw something else, something that made her heart sink. "We have a problem," she said. "The witness is safe, but we have an intruder," she continued. The team immediately went into action, their guns drawn and ready. They knew that they had to neutralize the threat, and they had to do it quickly. The enemy was inside the safe house, and they had to be stopped. The silence was oppressive, and the team's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. They were waiting for the enemy to make their move, and they knew it could come at any moment. "I do not like this," one of the team members said. "It is too quiet," he continued. The team nodded in agreement, their eyes scanning the surrounding area for any sign of movement. They were on high alert, their senses heightened as they waited for the enemy's next move. Suddenly, a faint noise was heard in the distance. It was a low rumble, like the sound of engines roaring to life. The team's heads snapped towards the sound, their hearts racing with anticipation. "What is that?" one of the team members asked. "It sounds like vehicles," he continued. The team quickly sprang into action, moving to get a better look at the approaching vehicles. They were trying to determine if it was the enemy and if they were planning to attack the safe house. As the vehicles drew closer, the team could see that they were a convoy of black subs. They were moving quickly, their tires screeching as they took the corners. "It is the enemy," one of the team members said. "They are heading straight for the safe house," he continued. The team immediately went into action, getting into position to defend the safe house. They were ready to respond to the enemy's attack, and they would do everything in their power to protect the witness. The extraction team was put on notice, ready to escort the witness to safety at a moment's notice. They were the ones who would get the witness out of harm's way, and they were ready to move at a moment's notice. The safe house was locked down, with all doors and windows secured. The team was ready to defend the safe house, and they would not back down. The enemy convoy was getting closer, their vehicles screeching to a halt outside the safe house. The team could see the enemy pouring out of the vehicles, their guns drawn as they moved to surround the safe house. "It is time," one of the team members said. "Let us do this," he continued. The team nodded, their guns at the ready. They were prepared to defend the safe house, and they would not back down. The enemy was not going to take the witness without a fight, and the team was ready to give it to them. The enemy moved to breach the safe house, their guns blazing as they tried to get inside. The team responded, returning fire as they tried to hold off the enemy. The battle was intense, with bullets flying everywhere. The team was holding their own, but they knew they could not keep this up for much longer. They needed to come up with a new plan, and fast, if they were going to protect the witness and defeat the enemy. The team's leader, Rostova, quickly came up with a plan. She knew they had to get the witness out of the safe house, and fast. She signaled to the extraction team, and they quickly moved to escort the witness to safety. The team provided cover, laying down a field of fire as the extraction team moved to get the witness out of the safe house. The enemy was relentless, but the team was holding their own. As the extraction team moved to get the witness to safety, the team could see the enemy starting to get desperate. They were getting more aggressive, taking bigger risks as they tried to get to the witness. The team knew they had to keep the pressure on, and they continued to lay down a field of fire as the extraction team moved to get the witness to safety. They were not going to let the enemy get to the witness, no matter what it took. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the extraction team managed to get the witness to safety. They were moving away from the safe house, getting the witness to a secure location where they could be protected. The team breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that the witness was safe. They had done their job, and they had done it well. But they knew the enemy was not going to give up easily, and they would have to be on their guard if they were going to keep the witness safe. As they moved to regroup and reassess the situation, the team could not help but feel a sense of pride. They had protected the witness, and they had done it against all odds. They were a team, and they had worked together to get the job done. But as they caught their breath and tended to their wounded, the team knew that the battle was far from over. The enemy would regroup and come back, and the team would have to be ready. They would have to be prepared to face whatever the enemy threw their way, and they would have to do it with courage and determination. The team was ready, and they would face whatever came next with courage and strength. They would protect the witness, and they would bring the enemy to justice. It was a promise they had made, and it was a promise they would keep. The silence was deafening, and the team was on high alert, waiting for the enemy's next move. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the safe house, and the team sprang into action. They quickly assessed the situation and determined that the enemy had breached the perimeter. "We have been compromised," one of the team members shouted. "The enemy is inside the safe house," he continued. The team quickly moved to defend the witness, using their training and experience to take down the enemy. The sound of gunfire and explosions filled the air, and the team fought bravely to protect the witness. Rostova and Ben were in the thick of the battle, using their skills to take down the enemy. They were a well-oiled machine, working together to protect the witness and bring the enemy to justice. The fight was intense, but the team was determined to emerge victorious. They fought with every ounce of strength they had, using their training and experience to outmaneuver the enemy. As the battle raged on, the team began to gain the upper hand. They had the enemy on the run, and they were determined to finish the job. The witness was safe, and the team was confident that they would emerge victorious. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the battle was over. The enemy had been defeated, and the witness was safe. The team was exhausted, but they were triumphant. They had protected the witness and brought the enemy to justice. The team stood victorious, their chests heaving with exhaustion. They had done it. They had protected the witness and brought the enemy to justice. Rostova and Ben shared a moment of triumph, their eyes locked in a moment of understanding. "It is over," Rostova said. "The enemy has been defeated and the witness is safe." But as they stood there, basking in the glory of their victory, they couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. The enemy had been too easy to defeat, and the team couldn't help but wonder if they had just been pawns in a much larger game. What if this was just a distraction? Ben said, "What if the real enemy is still out there, waiting for us?" Rostova's expression turned serious, and she nodded in agreement. The team had been so focused on protecting the witness that they had forgotten about the larger picture. They had forgotten that there were still many unanswered questions, and that the real enemy may still be out there. As they stood there, trying to make sense of it all, the team heard a faint noise in the distance. It was a low humming sound, and it seemed to be getting closer. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to make of the noise. "What is that?" one of the team members asked. "It sounds like a machine," he continued. The team didn't have time to respond as the noise grew louder and closer. Suddenly, a massive machine came into view, its lights blazing in the darkness. The team was shocked, unsure of what to make of the machine. "It is a drone," Rostova said. "It must be the enemy's next move," she continued. The team watched in awe as the drone hovered above them, its lights flashing ominously. They knew that they had to act fast to protect the witness and themselves from the drone's deadly payload. But as they stood there, frozen in uncertainty, the drone suddenly disappeared into the night, leaving the team to wonder what had just happened. The team was left with more questions than answers, and they knew that their mission was far from over. The darkness seemed to close in around them, and the team knew that they had to be vigilant. They had to be ready for anything, because in their line of work, the unexpected was always just around the corner. And as they stood there, waiting for what would happen next, they couldn't help but wonder what the future held.